We're here to make gospel-centered disciples of Jesus and to plant 100 churches in 25 years. As a body, we serve, we care for, we take care of one another within the body. We are to love Jesus. We want to live like Jesus, and we want to lead other people to Jesus. That's what this church is for. That is what this church is for. For hundreds of years, literally, believers have greeted each other like this. Someone has come up and said, "He is risen," and then someone else has said back, "He is risen indeed." So let's do that this morning as we get started today. I'm going to do the first part, you do the second part. He is risen. He is risen indeed. So good. Like there was power. Like some people aggressively said that. I enjoyed that. If you have your Bibles, we're going to go to 1 Corinthians 15. While you're doing that, yesterday, we had some crazy Easter egg hunts. They went great. We had one right next door, had 250-ish people right next door at this park. Fantastic, awesome leadership there. Thank you, Pastor Travis, and all who volunteered there. And then we had one in Shadow Creek Ranch, which the HOA, they decided to partner with us this year, and that made it get a little crazy. We ended up having about 1,200-ish people over there, and that's our conservative estimate. Some would say 1,500, and we say, don't lie. But it was gigantic, and here's the thing. The beauty of that is we got to invite a lot of people to church. We got to be in a community, but we got to share the gospel with literally hundreds of people. Hundreds of people heard the simple gospel of who Jesus is and what he's done for us. And that's a giant win for us. That's what we are about. If we don't get to do anything else, but we get to share the gospel, victory, man. Victory. We get to hop in the stream today of something that's been going on for hundreds, thousands of years now. We get to jump in something that we get to jump into the stream of hope. And think about that day 2,000-ish years ago, where on the Friday, Jesus goes into a tomb, and his disciples are scattered. They aren't there. They've run. He goes into a tomb, and it's posted there, and it's sealed there, and there's a guard there. And the disciples are, to say the least, deflated. But really, they've put their hope in this person for a while. Now, they didn't put their hope in him the right way. They thought their hope was going to be in some sort of nationalistic revolution that was going to happen as a result. And so he's here, and then he's gone. Now what? Now, he had told them multiple times that he's going to rise again, but I don't know, they're dense. And we tend to look at them and think, you know what? I would have figured it out, but I doubt it. I think all the time, like, why didn't you get it, Peter, James, John? What's the problem with you guys? Why weren't you there? But I don't think we would have gotten it either, because it had never happened before. There had never been a moment where somebody had been dead and then was alive. And what was dead in a tomb for days, sealed and guarded, a few days later the stone rolled away and he walks out. And because of that act, we have hope. We have hope to face every single situation. We have hope in every single area, aspect of life because of a simple act, maybe not so simple, of one who came and died and rose again. Where victory was snatched not from the jaws of defeat, but from the digestive system of defeat. I mean, the Pharisees and those who accused him and persecuted him and his followers, they thought they had won that day when he goes into a grave. But they played right into the hands of the sovereign God of the universe. That he would go into a grave and then he would walk back out, victorious over the thing that no one had ever been victorious over before, of their own power. And so we gather today like believers have gathered for thousands of years to point towards this hope. That this person who came and died and rose again, this Jesus, and what we call the gospel here, the gospel is who Jesus is and what he's done, that he's the Son of God, 100% God, 100% man, living perfectly, dying, and then rising again. This person and this work of Jesus, this gospel is the rock of our hope. We're starting a series today that's going to go through this month, and it's all about hope. And it's going to be a deep dive into the book we've been studying, 1 Corinthians 15. Today we're going to kind of concentrate on the first 5 verses today, because I just want us to understand this rock of hope that we get to hold on to, that we get to stand in, and that we get to receive. So if you have your Bibles, the scripture will be on the screen if you don't. 1 Corinthians 15, though, verse 1 says this. Now I would remind you, brothers, so it's Paul talking, he's talking to believers of the gospel, who Jesus is and what he's done. I preach to you, which you received, in which you stand, and by which you are being saved. If you hold fast to the word I preached to you, unless you believed in vain. For I delivered to you as of first importance what I also received. So he says, here's the thing I preached to you. Here's the thing that I gave to you, and it's of first importance. It is the most important thing. So if there's anything else going on, anything else that you're trying to order your life by, stop it. Here's the one thing that you order your life by. There's one thing you order your life by. For I delivered to you as of first importance what I also received. Here's what I got. Here's what Paul says, I got it too. I received it like you received it. I got it just like you did. Same message, same thing that saved me is the same thing that I'm talking to you about. And it's the most important thing. It says this, that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the Scriptures. That he was buried, that he was raised on the third day in accordance with the Scriptures. And then it appeared to Cephas, that's another name for Peter, and then to 12, and then goes on to say to 500-ish more. We gather and we celebrate this truth today. We gather and we celebrate who Jesus is, what he's done. We gather and we look at this rock of hope, this good news. The good news that what's broken can be put back together. That what's dead can be raised again. That what's seem lost can be found again. Because there's hope. Because there's hope in a person who came and he died and he rose again. I want to make 3 points. We're going to talk about rocks today. We're going to talk about rocks, then later today you're going to get a rock. Amazing. It's a theme. We're talking about Jesus, really the gospel, the rock of hope, and here it is. We need to realize, how do we get hope? We need to realize that good news can be received. We live in a 24-hour news cycle. I don't know if you know this or not, but you definitely do. If you watch Fox News, there's always breaking news. Also, same thing, weird thing, CNN always has breaking news. MSNBC always breaking news. Regardless of the time of day, there's always breaking news. It's always breaking, and it becomes the biggest thing that's ever happened, and it is always the biggest thing that's ever happened, and then we got a debate over the biggest thing that's ever happened, and then we fight over the biggest thing that's ever happened, and it's constantly breaking news. It's gigantic news all the time. And sometimes you see that stuff scroll across the screen. You're like, I like that. I don't like that. I think that's a good story. That's a bad story. That's good. That's not good. That's and we kind of ascribe value to the story, you know. Wherever you are with the gun rights thing, wherever you are with Trump versus not Trump, and this is a church where we aren't political. We just know liberals go here, Republicans go here, conservatives go here, Democrats go here, and people who are like, I hate politics go here. This is a place where we focus on gospel, and that's what we are about. You ascribe some worth to this story based on what matters to you. But here's the thing. It's just a story. It's a large scale thing. It's a big thing that might affect us a little bit locally, but it's really more large. It's just a story. And most politics are actually local anyway. The gospel's different. The gospel's good news, but it's good news that is received personally. Like it's not just a story that we hear and we ascribe some worth to. We say that's good, that's bad, that's good, that's bad. I agree, I disagree. It's good news and we can actually take it in and apply it to us. That the good news isn't just this broad thing, but it's a personal application into the hearts of men. That one who died once for all and rose again, that this one who did this, that once for all, you're part of the all. And that you can receive the thing. About 13 years and 1 month ago, it was exactly 13 years and 1 month ago, I called Wayne Meyer. And I said, Wayne, I love Allie. Now, I sound a lot more confident right now than I was on this phone call. I called Wayne, I said, Wayne, and my voice was shaking and trembling, and I think I was quite fearful. I lived in Richmond, and he lived in Corpus Christi, and I said, Wayne, I love Allie a lot, and I am going to ask her to be my wife, but I would like your blessing upon this thing. And Wayne is about 6'3", 6'4". He's a big guy, and if you know him, he's intimidating. If you don't know him, he's even a little bit more intimidating. He's kind of a strong, quiet man, and so I'm waiting for him on the other end of the phone to say something back to me, like I'm begging, and what was probably 3 or 4 seconds felt like an eternity. Wayne, I love your daughter. I want to marry her. Will you bless that? And he didn't say anything for a long time, and I thought, this is not going well. My youth pastor salary isn't going to be enough. Well, it wasn't. And he started crying. You know, that was it. He's also emotional in a way that is really sweet. And he said, yes, absolutely, and just let us know when it happens, and I'll keep it quiet. I won't even tell Janice, which was great because Janice is terrible at secrets. And so on March 5th, I concocted this whole scheme of the way Allie and I met. We met through a mutual friend, and we met using AOL Instant Messenger, and we had all these conversations, and I had saved every single one of them without her knowing, because I'm a stalker, and I saved them all, and I put them in a notebook, and then I had obviously gotten the ring, which took a lot of time to save up for, and youth pastor salary, remember that? And then I concocted this whole story that we had a youth house. I was a youth pastor, and said, hey, there's this homeless guy, and he went and wrecked the whole youth house stuff. We got to go over there, and we've got to go fix it. And so she's like, what? This is stupid. I don't want to do it, whatever. Okay, we'll do it. And I'd hidden all the things underneath this bucket out back. And I went out there and I pulled the bucket out, and she was just like, "What? Why is there a notebook here and roses?" And then I was on the other side, down on my knee, with a box and a ring open, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I gave her a rock, or more like a pebble. And it seemed like another eternity until she put it on her finger. But it was a rock that had to be received. The gospel is just like that. It's good news. And that rock, that pebble, was still there, and it had value. But it didn't mean anything between the two of us until she received the rock and said yes. The gospel is as cute as that story is, and I hope you think it's cute. The gospel is infinitely larger, stronger, more powerful. But this rock that we receive, that we appropriate and we apply to our own hearts, brings hope. Brings hope in the most desperate of situations. It brings hope in the ups and downs of what life brings. It brings hope. See, the gospel, the good news, can be received, and that's how we get hope. And number two, I want to say this. That we understand the good news gives us a fresh perspective. Good news, gospel, gives us a different way to look at things. Verse 1 says this, "Now I would remind you, brothers, of the gospel I preached to you, which you received, and in which you stand." Has anybody ever been to the Grand Canyon? Anybody been to the Grand Canyon? I've gone 2-3 times in my life. The first time, my parents did a wonderful thing for my brother and I, and they wanted to expose us to beautiful things. So they took us to the Grand Canyon. But I was a dumb 10, 11, 12, I don't remember exactly how old, kid, and they took us there, and I was frustrated because what I wanted to do was play basketball at the La Quinta Inn that we were staying at. But they made me go look at the canyon that has been named Grand. But I would rather play basketball at a La Quinta Inn, because when you're 13, you're stupid. Sorry, 13-year-olds, you don't value things properly. At least I didn't when I was 13. And so I went there once, and they brought me there, and we looked at it, and I said, "It's just a bunch of rocks." I think my mom will tell the story better, embellish maybe a little, but so you can ask her about it. It's funny. Then about 5 years later, I was a youth pastor in Michigan, and we took a group from our church to the Navajo Nation in Arizona, and we went to the Grand Canyon again. And as you're driving up to the Grand Canyon, like driving into the national park, it's massive, and you can enter from all different areas. The spot that we entered from was beautiful. It was amazing, and you're kind of getting glimpses as you're going from here to there. But then we got to the spot, this lookout area where we were planning to go, and we parked, and we all got out, and you look out there, and then there was a spot where we could climb up a little higher. And so we climbed up a little higher, and you get up here, and you see the vastness of the Grand Canyon, and your perspective changes. You get up on top of this rock, and you see something different. You understand, oh, it's not just a bunch of rocks. It's not just some crack in the ground. It's the most Grand Canyon in the world. This thing is beautiful. The perspective is different, and that is what the gospel is for us. Is that Jesus coming, Jesus dying, Jesus rising again gives us a new perspective, a rock that we can stand on, something that we can view our goods and bads of life, that we can see it through a different lens, that we can see why this thing is happening, how this thing is happening, what's causing this thing to go on, what is working behind the scenes in this area that I don't get. I don't know why the job was lost. I don't know why the diagnosis came. I don't get it. I don't know why I've been blessed so much or been blessed so little or whatever. I don't know why they have money and we don't have money. I don't know why I have money and they don't have money. I don't know why it happened. But the gospel gives us a place to stand on, to understand a little better that these things happen for His glory and for our good. See, we get to stand in the present as believers in Jesus. We get to stand on the good news of Jesus and say, this is the thing that orders my life. I stand on this rock and I say, all right, I get it. I don't get it completely, and I don't get it perfectly, and I don't see all that God's doing in the middle of this thing right now, but I can stand on this rock and I have different perspective. That it's not just a bunch of rocks down in the middle of this crack in the ground, but it's something much larger that's at play. It's something much bigger that's going on. And I don't know why it's happening, and I don't know the exact part of it, but I do get that the God who's out there, who came, who died, and rose again, that this God who's out there, who did this for me, gives perspective. And there's a gospel that we can stand on to say, all right. It's bigger than me. It's larger than me. I don't understand it exactly. But I see that He might be working things differently. See, the gospel is good news because it gives us a fresh perspective on the way that we see things. I remember when I came to know the Lord in December of 1997, things changed for me in the way that I viewed my own personal life. I at that point didn't know what I was going to do, and then the next month I knew that I came to know the Lord, and I felt called to see the school that I was at, not as a bunch of friends and we were going through this thing together in order to graduate and go to college, but instead get to see, wait a second, these are people who are far from God. The school I went to in Michigan, it actually had the highest drug and alcohol usage rate in the state of Michigan, in the suburbs. 98% of my graduating class had been drunk or I don't remember how they described it, high. Significantly high. I don't know, whatever. Aren't you glad I don't know? Isn't that a good thing? By the time we graduated. It was a problem. And the Lord gave me a new perspective as to how to see. But wait a second. This isn't the way I want to live my life. This isn't the way I want to do my life. But I love these people. And they need Jesus. The Lord used that whole time to call me into ministry. We saw 30 people come to know the Lord in that little club that we started there in Michigan, and gave me a fresh perspective as to why I was in that school. See, the gospel gives us fresh perspective. Why we view what we're doing in the middle of what we're doing. And number 3, I'll say this. We can hold on to the good news as protection. Now I would remind you, brothers, of the gospel I preached to you, which you received, in which you stand, and by which you are being saved. See, there's kind of a past aspect here that says you received it. There's a present aspect that says that you are standing on it, and then there's this future reality of you are being saved by it. That this rock of hope that you're standing on, this rock of hope that you received, that this rock of hope is also a place to grip when things get crazy. I was a youth pastor in Virginia before we moved to Texas, and we took some kids whitewater rafting in North Carolina. It was supposed to be a great trip. We had this one kid, his name was Adam. Adam was, how do you say it? Accident prone? I don't know. He was a malady waiting to happen at every turn. How about that? We got in the raft. We went over all the instructions. It was just a 1 or a 2, not really that big of a deal. Just a 1 or a 2 if you're a whitewater rafter, it's not a big deal. That's a light current. Well, Adam does not pay attention to anything because that's just what Adam did. He's a great kid who loves Jesus now, and he survived, so I'm thankful for that. Survived his adolescent years, which was a question at some point. He got in the raft, we got going, and then he was looking at a fish. He was looking at a fish. He was looking at a fish over the side. You know what happens next. We hit a rock. Not a big rock, a little rock. Adam, ba-boom, goes off. Now, the instructions had been very clear. Very clear. Grab onto the raft if you fall out. Do not try to swim. Get on your back, feet facing downstream, and just roll with the tide. Adam flipped over and tried to start swimming against the rapids. And then, bless his heart, the rapids picked up and washed him downstream. And they said, try to get to shore. Like, that's the deal you're supposed to do. And as a youth pastor, I've got 16 or 18 kids with me, and I'm thinking, what's going on? I'm 6 months into this gig. I'm going to get fired. I need to start brushing up my resume. This is not going to work long term because I got a kid killed. And we're looking, the guide's freaking out, and then we see Adam. He's washed downstream, but he's gotten to a rock, and he's holding on to the rock for dear life. He climbed on top of the rock, and then as we went by, he jumped back in and said, "Oh, that was awesome." It's like, Adam, you're stupid. But I am thankful that I do not have to quit. We are not talking about this with your parents until I figure out how to say it. See, a rock is a place of protection, too. See, there's these moments where it's just going to feel like everything's against you. You're going to feel like you're swimming upstream. You're going to feel like everybody's pushing against you, and you just don't know what to do. There's going to be these moments that are going to happen in your job, and they're going to happen in your career, and they're going to happen in your family, and they're going to happen in your marriage, and they're going to happen with your kids, and they're going to happen with your health, and they're going to happen with your parents, and they're going to happen with your grandkids. And there are going to be these moments that don't make sense. That's when we need to go back to the gospel we received, the gospel we stand on, and the gospel we cling to. Because a storm is going to hit you, and a river is going to push you down, and you're not going to be sure what to do. But that rock is a thing that is continuing to save you, where you can continue to draw strength from, where you can continue to see, I don't get it, but I'm holding on tight while these waters are pushing. And I don't know why, and I don't know what, and I can't even fathom the reason, but I'm going to hold on. This is actually a place that Allie and I found ourselves in about 6 months ago. Actually, probably more like 9 months ago. She has this rare disease called achalasia. It's an autoimmune disorder, and what it does, it causes her esophagus to not work properly. So most people's esophagus squeeze from top to bottom, and it pushes food down into the stomach. Allie's does this. It squeezes all at once, or it doesn't squeeze at all. And there's not really a way to control that. And we were kind of at the end of our rope about August. We had seen doctors, we had had surgeries, we had been through a whole host of things. And here's the thing that we figured out is sparkling water helps her. So if you ever see her with sparkling water, that's the reason. Hot drinks help her to digest things. So it's really been it had been a long trial. We had gone through one surgery. There are a couple other things to do. And I shared this story in August of last year, just a little bit of it. And randomly that day, there was a guy here. I mean, we were as low as I think we've been inside of our marriage at that point. We were breaking because we didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to lead her through it, and I didn't know. We prayed for some answer. And we didn't know what to do, and we just kept on going to Jesus, asking for help. Why? What's going on here? What do we do? And randomly, second week in August, there was a guy here who was a physical therapist. Not just a physical therapist, but a guy who works specifically with what looks like autoimmune disorders, but sometimes are classified wrongly and actually work. There's a way to kind of get some things moving. And so he's here. He comes for 1 week, and he hears the story, and he says, I want to go to breakfast with you tomorrow. So I go to breakfast with him that day. And his name was Dustin, and Dustin said, I think I can help her. And I was like, I don't know. Why do you think that? And he shared, what I do is there's a lot that goes on that's called autoimmune and might be autoimmune, but can actually be worked on. Bring her by and I'll treat her for free. And so we're like, okay, we like free. And it gave her relief. Now, it's not perfect still. I don't want to say the Lord brought him and he laid hands on her and she was healed completely. But I'll tell you this. We were clinging to a rock and we were kind of ready to let go. And Jesus brought an answer. Let me say this. Sometimes you don't get an answer. And we don't get an answer as to why it happened. We don't get an answer as to where it came from. But he's faithful. And he's good. And he gave us strength as we were enduring. And he gave us an answer at the end of our rope. See, the gospel is a rock that we receive and we stand on, but it's also a rock that provides protection in the middle of these broken moments of life. The things that we don't understand and the things that we don't get. There's another rock that's pretty funny in my life. It's my last story, I promise, and I close here. Christmas, when I was a kid, we would always get to open a present early. That was always a thing for the Crandalls. Christmas Eve sometimes a couple days earlier if we really broke my parents down. And what they would do is they had these, there would be these gifts, and these gifts would look great, and they'd be wrapped, and they would match the whole family's decor that year, and they'd be underneath the tree, and they would be right there, and my brother and I would go down and look at them, and you know how you are as a kid, the heavy one is the best one, right? The one that rattles, you can kind of understand what's in there. So I think it's the year when Game Boy comes out. You guys don't know what Game Boy is, but it's like a Nintendo Switch, which is also a little like a DS 1, 2, 3, or 4, I don't know, or all the other game systems that exist. And the Game Boy came out, and I was pumped because I wanted Tetris. I had played it at a friend's house, and I was like, I'm good at this. And I wanted to do this all the time. And I thought that in this box, this heavy box, there was a Game Boy. So that's the one I wanted. And I go and I open up that box, and do you know what's in that box? Sweet rock from my dad. I was pumped. I was mad. I just left it on the floor and walked away. That was not a rock that I wanted to receive. Because it was terrible. We can talk about good news all the time. We can talk about gospel all the time. And you can come to church and hear gospel frequently. You can go to life group and hear it all the time. You can be involved in relationships and hear gospel talk to you all the time. You can hear the word gospel all the time. You can hear this thing constantly. But if you just leave it there and don't receive it, then it does nothing for you. If you just leave good news in front of you and say, that's a good story, I like it, but you never apply it to you, then it does you no good. The good news of Jesus is that he came and he died and he rose again. And whoever would believe in him would have eternal life. That's the simple good news, the rock that we receive, that we stand on, and that we are being saved by. And that this thing is giant, and that it applies to every aspect of your life.